As our mandala wheel continues to turn, we are now entering in through gate number 24 within Taurus season. Gate number 24 is going to bring us up into what is known as the Ajna Center. This is a pressure center in the form of mental anxiety, but it is also the point of where we move into the third eye awareness. So we're going to be talking about the shadow energy of addiction, how the things we are addicted to becomes like gravity that is weighing us down. It keeps us from rising up into our full potential. We're going to move into the gift then of invention and reach the highest Sudi, which is known as silence. According to the I Ching, the gate of returning or the gate of rationalization, which is gate 24, is really about noticing the patterns that we trap ourselves in. So what goes around in the mind comes around in the mind until cycles become spirals in innovation and transformation happens. When we take a look at your human design chart, you're going to want to look at the second center from the top. And 51% of you will be defined, which means you'll be colored in within that area. And this means that you have a very fixed way of thinking. And the way that you think is going to be very directly related to whatever numbers are circled within that center. In relationship to the 24, it is a fixed way of thinking in terms of returning back to the start to see what more can be learned again. 49% of you are going to be undefined, so you're not going to have a consistent way of thinking. You're really designed to be like a sponge and take in lots of information from your environment. And you're also going to have a lot of different pressures coming in based on whatever numbers you have circled in. And it's really then about going through your deconditioning process to notice how you may have a addictive behavior to certain things that help you to feel a sense of knowing or a sense of being certain. We're going to find out that it creates a lot of fear within the body when there is a awareness of not having the answers and not knowing what needs to be known, and how we tend to then create stories, scenarios, our own certainty in order to alleviate some of that pressure. So we can either become trapped in our mind, or we can learn how to move into the higher aspects of the teaching and really tap into some deep third eye awareness, which then brings us into the connections to the higher self. So when we look at just the properties of gate number 24, this is where you may really be experiencing the mental pressure. So being up in the mind, trapped in the thoughts, or just feeling within that head center itself, this desire, this pressure to want to figure out what is going on, what am I experiencing right now? And it does carry a natural fear of ignorance. And that is the anxiety that comes when we believe that I'm never going to figure this out. I don't know what people are talking about. I don't know the answers to that. I don't know what I'm supposed to be figuring out. I don't know what this is teaching me. And noticing how much anxiety that may cause in the body when the mind is saying, well, you should know the answer and you should figure this out and everybody else is getting it. Why aren't you? And really paying attention to the own dialogue that might be coming up for yourself, acknowledging that there is a shadow energy of a natural fear of ignorance. And part of that fear is to inspire us to keep looking, to come inwards into the self, to then rise up and ask for divine guidance. But a lot of us have been taught to stay stuck in our own mind, that we have to figure it out. The little I has to figure it out. So it starts by recognizing for yourself, where does this pressure, this fear come from? And how much of your life carries that anxiety that you have to know the answers or you have to be smart? And is there a part of you that is afraid of not knowing, of being asked something and not having the answers, or being caught off guard, or even not being able to articulate what it is that you do know, but is beyond words? So having to go through those feelings of not being able to communicate in the way that maybe other people want you to communicate, or that you then feel that, okay, this was received well, this is understood by others. It is also going to act like a detective. So it really is designed to have us go back to the beginning, to kind of play things over again in the mind, to go through the scenario, to really maybe dive deep into some research or a field of interest, such as studying histories or cultures or religion, and really have that desire to, I want to go back to the beginning. I want to learn how this idea came into play, how this behavioral pattern came into play, how this cultural roots changed over time. Whatever that is for you that's drawing you in, it's noticing how much you are wanting to immerse yourself in all of it. Not just getting a snapshot in time, but really having the full spectrum view so that you can see, well, what else is there? Did I miss something? Is there more information to be extracted? So you might find that you even have different books that you go to, and perhaps you read them, it sits for a little while, and then you go back and you have to start over again. And as you're reading it again a second time, a third time, a fourth time, you may notice that you extract a little bit more information. So we're always getting new awareness, new ideas, bigger understandings based on the version of us that is showing up in that moment. It is using the mind, so it's using our intellectual capacity and also our curiosity. And it's the curiosity that then can bring us in through the third eye and bring us up into those higher dimensions. But for a lot of us, we get trapped in the intellectual field, having to memorize things, figure things out, and you may find that you tend to create a lot of worry or pressure by trying to extract that answer. So when it is stuck in the mind, trying to play out the scenario, trying to figure out why someone's behavior was the way it was, why that turned out the way that it did, what did we do wrong, really kind of putting the awareness back into the self, but also using the self to explore the worries, the fears, the anxiety. So you may find that you have a difficult time letting go of something. And sometimes people might even question for you, why can't you just let that go? There's something inside of you that is not satisfied with the progress, not satisfied with the answer, is still in that state of confusion. And it's noticing for yourself how much of a hold that has on you. Now, if you have gate 24 circled in your chart, this is a part of your personality. This is something to recognize within yourself, because we don't eliminate these components of who we are. We learn to accept that that's who we are. You don't allow it to override yourself. But when you are aware that, I have a tendency to just overthink sometimes and get really hyper fixated on an outcome, or just really stuck in, trying to figure everything out. I can get lost in my mind. I can create all sorts of stories. I feel an anxiety when I don't know what is happening. When you can recognize those components of yourself, then you move into a state of acceptance that works with that energy. So you start to become aware that, I do have a difficult time letting go until I am satisfied with an answer. I can become very set in my own ways. I like what is familiar to me. And that is where we do create what is called tunnel vision. We have a way of processing information. We go through a certain way of allowing an answer to come in that then makes us feel like, okay, that sounds right to me, that feels right to me, that's acceptable to me. So now it is comfortable. Now you can eliminate that doubt. You feel confident in that information. So that creates a familiar pattern. And when we often get new information in, and if it doesn't fit into our established pattern that is familiar, we oftentimes very quickly reject it because then there's a fear that comes in of, well, what if I was wrong? And that in itself can be quite unsettling. But we're really here to learn that by eliminating our old ways of the old ideas, then we can allow fresh inspiration to pour in. So it's really a state of allowing yourself to be emptied in order to be filled and not grasping on so tightly just so that you can have this false illusion of being guaranteed an answer, of feeling like, okay, I have some sort of control over this because I'm aware of what is going on, and this is what is happening. It is challenging ourselves to open the mind even further, to look for multiple perspectives and go, you know what? What if I was wrong? What if there's just more to be discovered? And what if I can put on my detective hat? And not in a way that is criticizing me or judging me or making me feel inadequate, but in a way that is just curious. Expanding your own awareness, expanding your own potential, challenging some of those deep-seated patterns that are established, and seeing if you can open up into that third eye awareness, deeper into your intuition to move beyond your human perception. This is also part of what is known as the channel of the thinker. So we can see why there is so much pressure in here to think, to have the answers. And when you have a colored in head center within your design, you are going to naturally have a lot of pressure to think. Now, quite a few of you is going to have the head center, that very top one in your chart, white. It's going to be undefined, or it might even be open. And when it's open, it means there is none of those three numbers that are circled in your chart. That means if you're white, undefined, or open, you're receiving information from the world around you. You are like a sponge for the collective consciousness. You're grabbing onto someone else's ideas, somebody else's thoughts, somebody else's way of processing information. So consider yourself in your upbringing with your family members, your environment, your school, your culture, all of those things where the little sponge goes, sucks it all in, starts to develop some patterns of, well, this is how I'm supposed to think, and this is what everybody else believes in, and starts to adopt those things for itself. Now, if you have that center colored in, you're also very aware of your upbringing, those around you, your environment, but you really do need to have your own experience before you buy into it. You are here to inspire others to think beyond what they would normally consider. So you may have been the one that came in with an awful lot of questions, and maybe your questions were shut down by others. Maybe you were made to feel inadequate or made to feel like, well, that's just silly. What do you mean you don't know that? So you might have been belittled. People may have been impatient around you. People may have been afraid of being challenged by the pressure that you naturally bring into the world. So noticing for yourself if you had a tendency to doubt your questionings that were naturally coming through as you were being stimulated to say, well, what about this? And really taking things and dissecting things and wanting to go deeper into the rationale of them, the reasoning of them, and really kind of feeling for yourself, how many times did I have a question, but nobody had an answer, and I was left feeling absolutely incomplete? Or somebody gave me information, and in my body, it was just like, no, that doesn't make sense to me. So, really trusting in your ability to know for yourself, regardless of your design, whether something feels to be right, whether something makes sense to your intellect. And it's not about having all the answers. It is really here to have a desire to explore what else is there? What more can I discover about this? So we do have what is called a channel of energy, and the channel of energy is actually going through gate 61 in the head, which is known as the mystic's gate. This is the third path. It's not the logic, it's not analytical, it's right in the middle. It's stepping into the gray area of this or that, and it's coming through the other. What about the other? What about the stuff that we missed? What about blending these things together? And then it goes really back deep into trying to rationalize, wanting to go back to the start, wanting to find something new. So if you have this channel in your human design chart, if this is a natural part of your design, you are a very deep intellectual thinker. And because you are a deep intellectual thinker, you got to appreciate that about yourself. But maybe there's also the awareness that that level of questioning, contemplating, it is so powerful that it can be felt in your auric field. And people might even be able to say, oh my God, I can hear you thinking out loud. And you might not even be saying any words, but they can just tell that you're really thinking and processing, and they can feel that energy pulsating out of you. So that can start to exhaust other people. It can start to exhaust yourself when you are deep in the thought and it's creating this pressure field, almost like putting a helmet on. When the helmet is on and you are just stuck in your own mind trying to figure this out, your energy is not able to move past that into the broader information field, into the third eye, tapping into the Godhead, source, creator, whatever you call that higher energy, to get the bigger picture. Now, it is a pressure that is here to seek the truth. You are a truth seeker. But what is the truth? Does the truth come in a textbook? Does it come from another human? Or are all those things in our creation based on the opinions of somebody else? So you have this energy within you that is pressuring you to see beyond, to not take things as this is fact, but to recognize that the only truth there is the truth beyond the veil, beyond the veils of our illusion, our perceptions, our identity, our safety nets, our comfort zone. And what is the truth? Maybe the truth has unlimited possibilities. And when we really look at the concepts of science, the greatest scientists are the ones that do not close the door. They're willing to be curious and to say, oh, you know what? I never thought of that other element. That changes this hypothesis. What we see out in the world is an awful lot of professionals who are very afraid of being challenged. And they will go to all great lengths to try to discredit somebody else to prove that they were wrong in order that they may be right because of a fear that is coming inside of, oh my gosh, what if I miss something? What if I am wrong? What if I don't know the answers? And at a shadow level, that pressure then prevents us from opening up and collaborating with others to have a combined sense of a greater knowledge. Now, if you have that channel and you are really defined up in the head center, you really are here to inspire others to rationalize their own thoughts and to move through their challenges. And this could be where somebody comes to you and they're telling you a story or they're sharing a problem. You're probably hearing, well, that's a fear. That's likely not going to happen. That's nonsense, right? So you have a lot of common sense that you bring to the table, and you can be aware that a lot of people actually don't have a natural sense of common sense. That has been bred out of us with society, with culture. We have forgotten how to think for ourselves, and we have allowed ourselves to be influenced by the masses. Do as I say and follow, right? So not challenging the authority, not challenging the teachers, not challenging the culture, but just adapting these mindsets, taking the information from books that somebody, some government, some organization has decided, well, this is what you should learn. This is what you should extract your information from. And really moving past that to help others consider other possibilities. Now, it may not be as easy to bring that inside of you to help your own self to expand beyond the mindset that you have created that then becomes your comfort zone. And some ways of really recognizing if you are stuck in your mind instead of developing your greater wisdom is noticing if you find it really hard to relax. Do you find it hard to release your thoughts? Are you awake all night long, therefore having insomnia? And if you are to that degree really stuck in your own pressure, it is then learning to find ways to release the pressure so that you're not in the small sense of self thinking, I have to figure it out, but you're moving through the third eye and tapping into where that information exists. And that can only come when we release the pressure field, that helmet that keeps us trapped in our small sense of self. So ways to do that is by acknowledging, I am a deep thinker. I really do create a lot of pressure. I am really curious to try to figure this out. I am going down the rabbit hole and I'm finding a sense of excitement, but then noticing when your excitement turns into anxiety. And when you are under that rabbit chase, where it's not fun any longer, it's more like, I got to figure this out. I just got to figure this out. When you catch that, then you can relax the mind because it's like, oh, I'm spiraling out of control again. I got to give myself a break. I got to release this pressure. So we create that helmet. We create our own pressure. Therefore, we can release our own pressure as well. So if you have a super busy mind, you can practice not being a slave to your mind by doing things that strengthen the mind's ability to relax and be silent. So you are actively training yourself to do things that help shut off the mind. Now, if your head center is colored in your chart, meditation is very difficult because the mind is never quiet. You will always have thoughts that are racing through, but those thoughts don't have to own you. So noticing for yourself, well, what activities can you do where you find yourself coming out of the head and more into the body? And maybe that is exercise, cooking, gardening, having a bath, getting a massage, right? Really noticing for yourself, in what activities am I more relaxed and not so stuck up in the busyness of the mind? So then reminding yourself you do have the ability to get there, and allowing yourself to spend more time in activities that help you to relax and they help you to be silent. And one of the things that they have found is music. It's the vibration of music that allows us to start to drift. We drift away from the pressure center. And when we start to drift, it opens up a little doorway where all that pressure starts to release itself. And the music for you is going to be based on what it is that you enjoy and how it tunes into the mood that you are in. So if you are in a state of contemplation, or you are trying to meditation, or you're just trying to release the pressure of your mind, notice that you have all these thoughts coming through, but don't try to hold on to one of them. Don't follow one and start to create something from it. Just allow it to be background noise. Now, in my own design, my head center is completely wide open. But I do have one of the activations that stimulates a lot of thinking. And what I found for myself and my own tendency to have what I call the monkey mind is I have a practice that I've had now for just about 2 years, where I go outside first thing every morning. And I do live in an area where I can do that. It's not too cold. And I go outside with a cup of coffee every morning, and I allow myself to listen to the natural world. Now, I do live by a busy roadway and there's a lot of traffic going by. We're close to a hospital, so sometimes there's the ambulances, there's other noises in the neighborhood. So it took me some time to not focus on the traffic, on the sirens, on those distractions, and to tune in to the birds, the wind, the natural sounds of the universe. So it is a way of creating a different shift in your perspective. And the more that you allow yourself to do that, and you just sit there and breathe, just allow yourself to be in that space. If you can't go outside, maybe you have a room, maybe you're just listening to some sounds of some water, maybe on your phone you have some sounds of nature. You're just allowing yourself to be present, to breathe into you, to relax, to feel safe, and to notice how many times are you tuning the ears into everything else that's happening, and can you bring them back into, I'm safe to be with me. I'm safe to be within this experience. Now, one of the most common misconceptions that we have been programmed to believe in is that the more you think about something, the more the ultimate answer is going to come. If I just keep at this, I will figure it out. Well, that becomes a form of punishment where you are overriding the wisdom of your body that is exhausted, that wants to take a break. And it is a form of the mind saying, we're not leaving until we get these answers. So we become our own jailer. We become our own punisher in not letting yourself do what naturally needs to be done. Not understanding that, you know what, if I take a break, if I go release some energy, if I go for a walk, if I go have a meal, if I go have a conversation, if I stretch my body, if I release some of this pressure, then come back, well, then I might be able to see with clear eyes. I might be more open to new ideas. So recognizing for yourself, do you tend to be really tough on yourself by making yourself stay past your point of exhaustion, past the point of, well, this is no longer fun anymore. This is a pressure to have to do something. And can you be your own savior to release that pressure and start experimenting with ways of moving through your energy to then shift and come back to see, well, does that help? Does it help you to put it to the side and maybe even just come back the next day or a couple days later and not feel like you have to get it all right now? So really kind of doing some contemplation for yourself to see how that is showing up for you. When we move now into the inner alchemy, we have the gate of returning, the gate of rationalization. That is the number 24 up in the Ajna Center. Well, now we're going to introduce the gene keys. This is the key that's going to open up the gate and provide us with the inner alchemy to do your inner transformation, to move from the lower vibrating energies up into the higher gift aspects of that. So we are following along with the Book of the Gene Keys by its founder, Richard Rudd. We're going to share some highlights from those teachings, but I also encourage you to get a copy of Richard's book, The Gene Keys, if that feels right for you, because it's another way of doing a deep contemplation for yourself and immersing yourself into the teachings. So we are going to be talking about the shadow of addiction, the dilemma of gravity, which is really in reference to how our addictive behaviors keep us stuck, moving then into the gift of invention. So invention, new ideas, new possibilities, the unknown frontier, and moving into the highest aspect of silence. Now, if you have a very busy mind, imagine being able to turn it off and be able to sit in the silence. Zero pressure. So let us first start by looking at the shadow of addiction and the dilemma of gravity. And, you know, the best way I could figure out how to portray that is the hamster on the wheel, the hamster running around in circles, literally getting nowhere. And that is us in our minds when we get stuck in our own addictive patterns of thinking, of behaving, of responding. We literally just turn and go in circles. We are not getting anywhere. We're not learning anything new. We're not evolving to a different way of thinking. We are repeating the same things over and over and over and over. And it's interesting because at a DNA level, we are pre-programmed for addiction. And that addiction does come from our mind. It is wired within us. And a lot of that is our conditioning, how we've been raised, the school system, the governments, the cultures, religions. We have been raised to not think for ourselves. Very few of us have been encouraged to have our own opinion, to believe in our own opinion, and to be validated for our own opinion. Most of us have been taught to adopt our parents' beliefs, our religion's beliefs, the school's beliefs, the culture's beliefs, and to be made to feel inferior for questioning them. So we have not been taught to think for ourselves. And if you have, you are rare. It is a beautiful gift that you were designed to do that, to even help enhance yourself even further. But when we really look at, you know, any areas that we have been conditioned, then we're going to notice that we've also followed those same familiar patterns our entire life. And this isn't to blame the parents, it's really to notice how one belief system from maybe the grandparents' generation was then adopted by the parent generation, then was adopted by your generation. And if you are a parent, maybe some of that was passed down to your own children. And it's just becoming aware of these familiar patterns. We only know what we know, and therefore we only do what we've been taught until something inside of us goes, this doesn't quite feel right. Or maybe there's a different way of doing that. But that only comes from a self-actualization. It has to be your own awareness that comes in and says, I need a shift. I need to get off of this hamster wheel because there's something about this that isn't working for me. So it is actually kind of rare for someone to find a whole new way of thinking. And that is why it is very hard to do the shadow work. You have to literally forget everything that you've ever been taught and being willing to start again. And a lot of people can be very fearful of losing their identity, losing their comfort zones of how they process information, how they just know what to do. To have to start from scratch can feel very scary, but it can also be felt very freeing if somebody is willing to embrace that journey. And you're not being asked to forget everything. You're asked to just start poking little holes in your helmet, in your mental perception field, to allow in new inspiration, to take some of that pressure off yourself that you have to figure it all out. So the 24th shadow, that shadow of addiction, its dilemma of gravity, it really is creating this very low vibrational frequency. Your body feels this. And it comes online every time your comfort zone is challenged. Physically, emotionally, mentally. And that is a good experiment that you can do, is when you feel challenged to move out of what your comfort zone is, your way of thinking, your way of handling your emotions, your way of dealing with your physical body. Someone being in your space, in your bubble, encroaching on your rhythms, your patterns, the way you like to do certain things, no longer being able to stick to your routine or go to your sources of information. Notice how that starts to feel within the self. Becoming aware of how we do follow very predictable paths. We have our preferences, we have our routines, we have our behavioral mannerisms, how we go to work. You might be driving the same route every day to go to work. You might have one grocery store that you tend to prefer going to. You might have a pattern of how you go through that grocery store. You might have a preference to where you get your gasoline, where you like to take your holiday. And really noticing for yourself, how many things do you do that are predictable, that have a set pattern? And if you were to step back and study yourself, or if it's easier for you, if you just watch somebody else close to you for a little while, notice if you can predict what they're going to do. When do they eat? When do they do this? How do they do that? How do they sit at the table? What utensil do they pick up? Do they tend to do certain little mannerisms before they start eating? And the more you become aware of other people's predictive behaviors, the more you may start to realize that you also have very predictable behaviors. And when you start to then notice your own predictable behaviors, then you can see how you are trapped in your own hamster wheel. You are walking the path that you have created because it is familiar to you. So anything that you believe, anything that you've put into form, you have created. And it's those creations, those forms that become our addictive behaviors. And that's what keeps us stuck. That is the dilemma of gravity. Not being so willing to change certain things because, well, I like to do it this way. I like my coffee at this time of the day and I like it with this certain stuff in it. I like taking that route to work. I like certain things. That's going to add too much time. That's going to be too difficult. So we keep ourselves trapped mentally in our comfort zones because we're addicted to them. So all modes of thinking, everything that's coming from the mind that says, well, you have to do this and you can't do that. That is addictive behavior. It keeps you stuck in there. And the only thing that's going to break the addictive thinking is silence. Silencing the mind and tapping into the wisdom of the body that holds the truth. The body knows when it needs to take a break. The body knows when it is hungry. The body knows when it is thirsty. The body knows when it needs companionship. The body knows when to move out of harm's way. The body knows when it needs stimulation. The body knows. But we have been programmed to overdevelop the mind, the masculine. The body is the feminine. So we're coming into a shift, a greater awareness of allowing the body wisdom to rise, using the intellect of the mind, bringing the divine masculine and feminine, the mind and the body into balance, so the inner spirit of us can rise up. That is tapping into that third eye awareness. So anxiety is a big component of that ajna. And in the teachings of the Gene Key, it really talks about whenever we have this gap in our awareness. So a gap in your awareness is hitting a point where the mind either just goes blank, like you just completely forget something, you can't recall any information, you don't have the answers, you're stuck, you don't know how to proceed any further. And recognizing how that can create a mental anxiety whenever you notice that gap. Or even just trying to experiment for yourself where if you're placed in silence, if you're placed in a room where nobody is talking, do you feel uncomfortable? Do you feel like you have to start a conversation, that you got to make a noise? Are you able to sit in silence? And try it. Try it for a minute, try it for 2 minutes, and just notice what comes up for you in the body. And it may surprise you how uncomfortable we are in not having an answer, not knowing. And because we are so uncomfortable, we either start to numb ourselves. So numbing can be moving to food, picking up our phones, scrolling through social media, watching television, maybe immersing yourself into a book, just doing something to eliminate the uncomfortability. Or it's a distraction, right? So it's one of two ways. It's a way that you are mentally trying to fix the anxiety, the uncomfortability. And the more we catch ourselves in our behavioral patterns of, oh, well, this is my form of numbing. This is my addictive behavior because I feel uncomfortable, because I don't know what to do. This is how I distract myself from that sensation. Then you're going to catch your addictive patterns. And that shadow of addiction, when it has its hold on us, and oftentimes we're so unconscious to it because it feels familiar, we've created our comfort zone around it. Well, we don't want to break free of that. So it is there to ensure that we do not change because the mind does not want to lose its power. The mind does not want to release its hold on you. The ego, your mind, wants to be in control. It doesn't want to surrender that over to a greater power. So that is where we stick in our illusion of being separated. I have to figure it out. Instead of tapping into the larger, well, the answer already exists. What if I have to listen to receive the answer? But we're not taught that. We're taught to go figure it out, problem solve it. Maybe you're great at problem solving. Maybe the other people are commending you for your ability to problem solve. Maybe there's an identity now based around your ability to problem solve and how everybody else appreciates that, how you're recognized for that. Well, what if you could not solve the problem? How does that change your story? How does that feel within your body? Can you be confident, self-assured in not having the answer? Or does that create a lot of pressure within you that then creates a fear story? So when we look at the chakra system, we are really looking at our first three chakras. That is where our lower vibrational energy is trapped. This is where we become really, really dense. We can't rise up into our higher states of consciousness. It just keeps cycling and circulating down in this area. So the physical body being at the root level, safety, security, how we integrate with the world around us, the root of our suffering. It is wired into our DNA and it appears in the physical body. Then we have what is known as the astral body, the emotional body, but it also holds our desires, our sexuality, the emotions, the longings, the feelings, and it carries all of our cravings that are unrelated to survival. The root is all about survival instincts. We have evolved beyond that. So now we have all these desires, all of this untapped potential, longings, feelings, cravings. And within there sits our primal wound. And that primal wound is we perceive ourselves to be separate from the whole. So we have all these desires that come within us. Their frequencies, their impulses, and they're coming up as a means to escape that perceived suffering. We don't want to sit in our suffering. We don't want to acknowledge that something isn't working. We want to move away from it. We want to change it. So the mental body, which then comes into your solar plex, your power center, but it is fed from the mind, the human mind. It then reacts to the desires of that astral body, of those emotions, and it tries to think its way out of suffering. So what happens is we just keep circulating the energy down in the lower chakras. It never has a chance to rise into a place of healing at the heart level, at the level of love. And Mother Earth is such a powerful teacher, and a way to really look at that is to see the ant. The ant has 3 segments to its body. There are millions of ants. Ants are very symbolic for the everyday people. The physical body is the largest part of it, is essential for survival, but it also weighs us down. It can get very heavy. Our emotional body is standing in between the physical and the mind, the ability to then tap into the environment and to really feel that way through. So we can look out to Mother Earth as our reminder of, oh my gosh, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in my lower vibrations. Well, what if I can fly? What if I can choose to be the butterfly or the dragonfly? What if I can get myself past these patterns of behaviors? I can see my suffering. I can accept responsibility for my suffering, and I can use invention, the gift, to move myself from that suffering into what brings me joy and happiness. So another way to also look at that is to really see our auric field. Our first level is the physical. Then we move into the astral, the emotional. Then we have our mental body. Well, beyond that, we get to the casual body, which is the soul level. That's the heart level. That is the healing level. Then we can get into what is known as the Buddhic body, which is the higher state of emotions. We can move up into the Atmic body, which is the higher mind. And we can tap into the Modaic body, which is divine will, God, source, the creator, whatever that is for you. So our chakra systems, our energy centers, they play a key role, and they all rely upon one another to really be opened up in order for the energy to flow properly. But it first comes from the root center of yourself, which is why if you don't have a strong foundation, if you don't trust in yourself, if you don't feel safe and secure in being present with you and being present with your intuition, your awareness, trusting in your ability to make decisions, then you can't rise up in the fullness of your power to cross the bridge into a higher state of love, to bring that into manifestation, to see beyond your own stories, and to open up to be receptive to life, to the impulses of life. So addiction, addictive behavior begins in those lower three chakras. Our mind builds the images, builds the stories and the projections around all those desires in our astral body, our emotional body. That then sets you on an addictive course of behavior aimed at relieving the suffering. So when we get to the heart of the matter, where we can really look at our suffering instead of trying to numb it and trying to distract ourselves from it, but we can sit in it. Then we become aware of our suffering. We become aware of what is keeping us in the suffering. We understand that we alone are responsible to move through it, to integrate it, to transcend it. That then brings us into those higher states of consciousness. So it's also knowing that we came into the world with suffering deeply rooted in our DNA. We all carry karma. We carry karma on behalf of the collective. It is wired into us. You are components of your mother, your father, your ancestor. Well, they all have stories. They all have suffering. They all have suppression. It is in your genetic field. But so is the program to transcend that when you do your own inner alchemy work. So suffering is rooted deeply within our DNA, and it's only when you do turn inward to look for the source of your suffering that you will finally face the addictive quality in your own mind. So when you see your pattern of behavior, then you can intercept the pattern of behavior. So this is really looking at, well, how do we escape that wheel of addiction? How do we get ourselves off the hamster wheel? How do we stop doing those same things over and over and over again? It's like, why am I still here? What am I not learning? And instead of trying to figure it all out, we start to become silent. So in the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd says, your willingness to confront your mind creates the necessary pauses that allow your mental body to disentangle itself from the astral body, from your emotions. So when you stop and pause, when you stop and relax, you're giving your mind time to let go of the emotions. You're purifying that emotional body, the astral body. You're starving it off of external stimulation. And when you do that, then you're entering into the holy ground of pure desire, your desire to return to your true source, which means you're coming home to you. You're not trying to figure it all out. You're sitting in the awareness, you're breathing into the body, you're settling down the power of those emotions, you're letting go of the pressures of the mind, and you're breathing inwards. You're coming home to the heart of you. You're feeding the inner light. That inner light then has an opportunity to grow. And as it grows, it surrounds you and it brings you up into those higher vibrational fields that hold the truth, that hold the language of the soul for you. But we cannot get to it when we are stuck in our addictions, when we're stuck in believing that we have to figure it out, that we are here to do it by ourselves, stayed in that illusion of separateness. It is being willing to tap in to the pulse of life that is all around you. So there's two ways to look at this. We have a repressive side and we have a reactive side. And I love the idea of the social media because so many of us are buried in our phones, or we can look at the younger generations that literally don't know how to walk without looking in their phone. They don't know how to sit at a table and have a dinner without being on their phone. They don't know how to socialize with one another without that phone. So this is a cultural that has been conditioned. It's a behavioral pattern that has been adopted by the masses. So the repressive side of our shadow of addiction is being frozen. When it feels that gap in their awareness, it doesn't know what to do and it doesn't know the answers, that fear comes on as being frozen. It's like having stage fright. All of a sudden you forget your lines and you become aware of everybody looking at you and you got nothing. It's frozen. So it starts to shrink away from that feeling of being empty. And freezing manifests for us in many different ways. In the physical body, you can literally feel yourself just being drained of energy, like just utterly exhausted. I'm frozen. I don't know what to do. This is where procrastination comes in. You're so overwhelmed at the extent of what needs to transpire that you don't even know where to start, so you don't have any energy to start. You're just done. You're depleted because of the scope of what you believe is your responsibility. Emotionally, we can become depressed. We can just start spiraling down into feeding ourselves all the negative thoughts of, well, I'm stupid, I can't do this, I'm not worthy, I'm not intelligent, right? We can become our worst bully and use the mind to really feed into those emotions to keep you trapped, frozen from growing and transcending and reaching out for help. Mentally, that's become where we become very narrow-minded. This is my preference. This is the way we've always done it. And not being able to move out of that. So that is a state of being frozen. Really guarding your own perception of reality, not taking in any other feedback, any other help. No, I got this. I got this. Right? So pushing away, pushing away, pushing away. So frozen, getting nowhere. And then really turning towards numbing as a source of comfort. And this is where we see the addictive behavior come in, going to food, sex, TV, social media, drugs, alcohol. There is so many ways of addiction. And we've been taught, well, I don't have an addictive behavior. I'm not on drugs. I'm not alcoholic. How much time do you spend on social media? How much time do you spend working? How much time do you spend in some kind of form of losing yourself in that activity? and really noticing, well, what are your addictions? Sometimes we're not even aware that, oh my God, that's an addictive pattern. That is actually keeping me, it's sabotaging me from doing what I really need to be doing. And then looping it back and going, well, are you doing it because you're depressed, you're lonely? Are you just stuck in your mind and you're not allowing for any other help? Or are you just drained of your energy? Have you given everything away because of that mental field that is just exhausting you? So we want to move that into a state of greater awareness. The reactive side to addiction is being anxious, being very, very anxious. So it is unwilling to fully experience the feeling of emptiness, the same as the repressive side. But this time, when it feels that gap, when it doesn't know the answers, when it feels like it's getting nowhere, they panic. And it really does have this anxious feeling. Oh my God, that this report is due. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to figure out this program. I don't know how to meet this demand. I don't know. I don't know what to do. So that panic then becomes channeled into taking action, letting the mind decide. And it does a really quick reactive solution to its perceived problem. It exhausts the energy that it has, that if that individual were to just sit and breathe into themselves, take a break, maybe go have a conversation with somebody else, piggyback off some ideas, some feedback, some collaboration, right? Instead of doing that, it so quickly reacts because it believes it has to figure it out. So the mind decides on the action, and that action exhausts all the energy that could have been used towards a creative solution, a new invention in that. So noticing for yourself, when you're under pressure, how many times do you convince yourself, well, let's just do it this way? And then you do it, right? And instead of taking a step back and going, why don't I just walk over and ask so-and-so? They have a lot of experience in this, and I'm sure that they could really help me to understand this bigger. And then a lot of times the mind will go, no, they're too busy. You can't bother them. They're going to think you're stupid. They're going to think you're not qualified for your job. You're going to be laughed at. You're going to be ridiculed. You should know these answers, right? So noticing how your mind's dialogue prevents you from truly growing because of an anxiety or a fear story that you're not allowed to do something. And then using the rationale of that and going, but if I walked through my fear and I trusted that my intuition said, go ask that person for assistance, well, does that open up a greater possibility of recognizing that other individual, empowering that other individual, giving them an opportunity to share, giving myself an opportunity to enhance my own awareness, maybe opening up a friendship, maybe opening up a collaboration, maybe allowing an opportunity for you to actually help the other as well. So now you have two cells coming together, collaborating. Then those cells become 4, become 8, become 12, become more. We grow when we allow in help and we stop the idea that we have to figure it all out. So noticing for yourself, how does that come up? Quite often we see the reactive side is, this is the workaholic, or this is the gambler. So gambler in the extent of just taking unnecessary risks, just grasping at straws out of thin air, right? I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do that, right? Because of the fear of working with others or the fear of admitting it doesn't know. So there's a real inability to sit still, anxious, pacing, right? Always just kind of wearing the carpet thin, walking around in circles again and getting nowhere, feeling jumpy, feeling agitated, feeling very unease within the body and within the mind. So now we want to move into the gift level. We want to draw our awareness to our shadow pattern, but then we want to bring it into the gift. We want to cross over the bridge. We want to enter into the light. We want to break new ground. So according to the gene keys, when we are willing to face our own ignorance, admitting that we do not know and that we may never know, then we can cross the bridge from our addictive, repeating neurological pathway and into the higher vibrations of consciousness. So at that gift level of invention, you recognize and you catch yourself either trying to avoid the gap, the uncomfortability, the silence, and falling then into an addictive behavior, or you recognize fully when a gap is there, when you've got nothing, when it is silent, and instead of running from it, you surrender into it. So the gift of invention is bringing new things into the world, and it often surprises itself as much as others. And maybe you can do some reflection here of just, trying to work on something, and then maybe having taken a break, done something that is fun, having a bath, going to bed at night, and then all of a sudden, either having a dream, a vision of how you can do something, or just all of a sudden getting the answers, getting awareness. Oh my God, I never thought of doing that. I never thought of that angle. Or being guided to exactly the right place, the right person for the right information to build another piece to the puzzle. And noticing that, yeah, it does. It comes with that element of surprise. It is to be curious. It is something new. It doesn't mean brand new in the world, but it's a new to you. It's beyond your normal thoughts. It is a greater awareness, a greater intuitive. It is a hit coming through. So allowing yourself to have fun with that, but it only comes when we say, you know what? I don't know. I don't know how to do this. I don't know the answers. But recognizing, well, they do. Life does. Life has the answers. So why not quiet the mind and quiet the body and cross over the bridge from the little I that has to figure it out into the light of that higher awareness? One of the ways to do that, and this is purely the teachings of the Gene Keys in this entire book, the downloads from Richard Rudd and from all the other teachers that have come after that. In my own work, this is also a deep area of where you go into the art of contemplation. The contemplation is really using the mind to go, I wonder, or I'm curious, or just imagine, what if, right? So we start to use the language that moves you out of being stuck and into the realm of new potential, new ideas, new angles, new possibilities. You're rising the vibration from excitement. You're not being stuck in the problem. You're shifting your energy to inspire yourself to open up to a greater sense of, I wonder the possibilities of doing this in a different way, of starting fresh, of looking at a new angle, of bringing in another element, turning it upside down. But you have to be in a state of fun, of openness, of childlike curiosity, high vibrational energy. So getting yourself in a place of being inspired instead of feeling like you're weighed down, suffocating yourself by trying to figure it all out. So to contemplate is to surrender yourself into the great mystery of life, until it suddenly and unexpectedly reveals itself to you through a process of deep insight, third eye awareness, mystical contemplation, flashes of awareness and inspiration. So it is our reminder that we can stay on the hamster wheel and we can keep going in circles. So our addiction, our addictive patterns, our addictive behaviors, the way we continuously continue to do something, that addiction is going to think in circles, whereas invention is going to think in spirals. It's going to move us up and higher, even though it's still another circular pattern. But so are your chakras. So our energy starts to expand out this way as we allow ourselves to be more creative, more inventive. It doesn't stay stuck in this. It breathes out. It's like taking that breath, releasing it out, right? And the more you breathe easy, the more you're pulsing out that energy. When you do it to such a degree that you're just surrendering and you're tuning into life, you're allowing yourself to be immersed in life. You are a part of life, not separate from life. Well, then you enter into the Sudhi, the highest vibrational energy of silence. And the silence only can occur when your individual thinking ceases entirely. So in some of the words, it is known as let go and let God. And God is source, the universe, the creator, whatever that language is for you. But it's the state of awareness of, I don't know how to do this, but they do. And being excited enough to tune in, to relax the mind, to breathe into that awareness, to breathe into the body, to open yourself up to be receptive. And it's a very beautiful awareness, because this gate 24, this gate of return, this gate of reflection, looking back, when we follow the teachings of the mandala wheel, this is our last gate in Taurus season before we hit what is known as a directional gate in the teachings of human design and the gene keys. And that is our next gate activation. It's in our next video that you're going to get as part of Taurus season. It brings us into gate number 2, which is all about pure receptivity, the pure feminine, the body. So this is our check-in point to see how far we have come, how far you have come, to catch any more of those addictive behaviors, those mindsets, those patterns that are keeping you locked in a story and in a program that is addictive. To then take what you see, bring it inwards, as we're going to enter in through the gate of receptivity and become more aware of the flow of the pulse of your feminine nature, allowing for deeper intuition to now change that course. And when we look at our addictive behavior, it's not about forcing it. Forcing is the mind, the masculine. The way of receptivity, the way of the body, the way of the feminine is the element of water. So when you think of water upon the earth, because Taurus is an earth sign, well, water, waterfalls, creeks, rivers, whatever the water is, it eventually returns itself to the source, which is the ocean, the collective consciousness. It moves earth, it moves ground, it can erode away the rocks. It knows how to soften the edges. It finds the easiest, most effective pathway through without exerting a lot of energy. And we'll notice out in Mother Earth that once it breaks through the ground, once it applies just the right amount of elements to do it, it picks up momentum. So use Mother Earth as your greatest teacher. Use the signs, the symbols, the mysticism of life. Become deeply contemplated into the whole, I wonder, why do I keep seeing this? Why does this keep coming up for me? What is it teaching me? Don't look at it as a barrier. Look at it as life teaching you, and allow yourself time to sit in the pause to get the wisdom. That is where you tap into your genius. There is a difference between knowledge. Knowledge is found in textbooks. Genius is that higher state. So think of Nikola Tesla. He did not stop inventing. He was getting downloads of information. It didn't come from studying all the textbooks. You might have an interest in that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not your only source. There is unlimited potential to tap into when we allow ourselves to say, you know what? I have no idea. I don't know the answer. I don't know how to do that. And being okay with that, being honest with other people and noticing how maybe they also release some of their own guards, their own defensiveness. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and to be real and to be honest, that has an auric vibration to help others feel safe in our presence and to disclose more of their own truths instead of trying to pretend that they've got it all figured out or to create an illusion, a persona, being very judgmental because they're afraid of being challenged, and noticing how it softens. So when we come from a place of vulnerability, from truth, from authenticity, we allow for greater pathways to then form. So enjoy this contemplation, enjoy this journey through Taurus season, through getting to know yourself. If you're immersing yourself in the teachings of the mandala wheel and really following along as we have these different gate activations, these are all beautiful ways to acknowledge the shadow energy, not to eradicate it, but to accept how it appears for you and to then recognize it's your opportunity to harness the gift. So it's only when we see something, we catch something, we're aware of something, it becomes conscious to us, that we then have the opportunity to invent another way of doing things that then gets us out of our stuck program, our addictive behaviors, our self-sabotages, and it rises us up and out into new frontiers, new possibilities, and new pathways. Namaste. The light in me sees the light in you. And I look forward to sharing more in our next gate activation as we travel through the pure feminine in gate number 2 as part of Taurus season. Take care.